Welcome back to the channel for the final F1 show of 2024. The year has flown by very, very fast. I mean, look, apologies for the delay, people. I've had a very, very busy week and a half. I've hardly been able to talk F1, hardly been able to do the stream. Had to keep delaying the stream again and again and again. So apologies for that. Anyone who was waiting for the F1 show, anyone who was looking forward to the show, apologies once again. The lads are back for one final time, 2024, to discuss the F1. There's been a lot. There's been a few off-season, news. There's been a few events happening, but I mean, we can get to it, can we? Because lads, it's been a very, very, very busy and a very interesting year of F1. Very interesting year of how things panned out. But in 2025, we expect things to get better, don't it? Gustia?
Yeah, just as I said in this message, it's been a minute since I've been on the show. Same as you, Ekabin. Been a tough, hectic, festive period.
I was on a couple of days ago ranting about the Celtics with King, but you know what it is. He was smirking because the Philadelphia 76ers got to win in Boston on Christmas. But guess what? You're still 11 for 17, my friend. So hold that. But I'm just kidding. But yeah, let's see.
We're in no place to criticize King. We'd be hypocrites. We did the same after United beat City, and look at us. So, oh no, I think King gets full credit there. No, but yeah,
that was just a little bit of I was just a bit of a light, just to get the show going. But yeah,
of course, as you should. But no, yeah, it's nice to be back. Nice to talk about Formula One, recap the season briefly, and look ahead to what I think will be perhaps. I'm putting it out there. You can clip this. You can call me a fool for saying this, but I truly and utterly believe, in my heart of all hearts, that next season could go down as the greatest season ever. So I mean, yeah, looking forward to the show. Nice to recap what happened in Formula One over the year. A lot happened. It's been a while. It's been almost a year since the Formula One season started, and I think it definitely surpassed all of our expectations. So it'll be nice to just revisit, take a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, 100%. Take a trip down memory lane. King, I mean, you've joined my channel in about what, October, around late October time. We spoke NBA, we spoke F1. It's been a good 2024 in terms of how the YouTube stuff has been going, and how very interesting year of sports. But F1's where I think you've played a big part, and I want to thank you for that as well. How are you today? Let's get the show going, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I appreciate being on the shows, whether it be Formula One or NBA. I love talking sports, all types of sports, and yeah, I think this F1 season's been really good. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to look forward to. I mean, coming towards the end of the year, but yeah, I do agree with Gustia. 2025 F1's gonna be something special, I think. A lot of young drivers coming through, a lot of interesting changes, especially in the last couple weeks after the season ended as well. So be good to discuss the season review and look forward to the future of F1. It's going to be a good one.
100%. Before we get into it, make sure you show us some love in the chat. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. 105 subs before the end of the year. 2 more subs. Let's get going, people. I mean, there's only 2 subs. 105 subs before the year ends. I'll happily take it. I left the link on Twitter, so you guys make sure you go and click the link and join the channel. Hop onto YouTube and leave a like and leave a comment and all that good stuff. But let's get into it. I mean, the F1 season's been really good fun, isn't it? I'll start off with with Augustia on this one, because obviously you and I have been talking F1 for many years now. So this is where I kind of want to start with you, because we've been talking on chat for a very long time. Obviously, in person, not just in person, but obviously we've spoken briefly about of all the drama that's unfolded about. But now we're talking to an audience, a respectable audience, on YouTube and Twitter. But yeah, let's start with the season. Let's just talk about the year as a whole. Like, obviously, with Verstappen winning his 4th title in a row, with Ferrari on sort of on their way up, McLaren have made a statement that they're ready to compete now with the 2 young drivers. How has the year been for you in terms of F1? Like, because yeah, like I said, it's been a very big year, very interesting year for F1. Obviously, with massive breaking news, with a lot of drama unfolded. But yeah, the floor is yours, my friend.
I think it was a very impressive year. I enjoyed it. As a fan, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think F1 perhaps was my most enjoyable sport this year. The fact is, it's easy to criticize it retrospectively, but if we go back and remember the expectations we had for F1 prospectively coming into the season, Red Bull won all but one race last year. Max Verstappen completely dominated it, broke every record. The gap between first and second was bigger between the gap between second and 10th. So last season, it was one-way domination. The RB19 was one of, if not the quickest car ever. And Max alone won the Constructors. You didn't even need Checo to do it. So to come into this season, at the beginning, if you told me, hey guys, hey Gustia, if the F1 this year was going to have 7 different race winners, and not just 7 different race winners, but 7 different race winners twice, I would have bit your hand off for it. And then if you would have told me we would have had a 3-way fight for the Constructors title, I would have been like, we've hit jackpot. It's almost like we've won the lottery. To go from where we have within 1 year sounds very unrealistic, sounds fantasy-esque, but it happened. We did it. So no, I agree. I think it's been a very impressive year. It's been a pleasant surprise for sure. And obviously, yes, Max did win it, and he did win it by over 60 points. But to those who didn't watch the entirety of the season and turned it off after the first 10 races, after that, it was definitely one of the most competitive times in Formula One, not just recently, but historically. So, no, I think all in all, great. And it's so nice. I think one of the silver linings about this season, at least for me, I don't know what you guys think, is I think it's so important that the likes of Lando and Oscar and George and Charles finally got multiple victories, because that's going to be so big next season. Because one, they finally have the experience, the wherewithal to win or to compete at the highest level amongst the best of the best. And secondly, we look good coming into next season. It looks like McLaren, Ferrari, perhaps Red Bull. You can never discount Max Verstappen, who this season, I think once and for all, proved why he is the best driver on the grid by far. That race in Brazil, easily one of the greatest drives I've ever seen. The greatest race this season, no doubt about it. And I think, yeah, we could have a 4-way fight. And then we have the midfield that's improving as well. You have the likes of Haas under their new boss. Very impressive season to come from last to basically compete for best of the rest. Wildly impressive. You had Alpine's renaissance in the middle of the season, where Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, as you point out, Ekevin, a lot on the show, were that Brazil race, the 2 and 3, out of the blue, unexpected, and then they proved that wasn't a fluke, because they sustained it and they maintained it heading in, even going into Abu Dhabi, for example, in Vegas, where Gasly was putting in Q3 performances. So we look really good, and then not to mention Aston Martin, they got Fernando Alonso, one of the 3 best drivers on this grid. And they have Adrian Newey coming in. So look, I think this season was great. This season was almost, I hope, a preview for next season, but also almost a saving grace in a way of, damn, there still is hope in Formula One. After, an era of, let's be completely honest, guys, pretty underwhelming, right? The races, we already knew who won the races before they even started over the last 2 years, after the Hamilton-Verstappen era and the new regulations were intact. So, look, all in all, bottom line it here, I think it was a pleasant surprise this season. To have 7 different race winners and not just win once, but twice, is amazing. So I think it bodes really well for Formula One, not just this season, but going forward as well. King, I'll pass the torch on to you.
Go on, bro. Yours.
No, I agree. I agree with a lot of what Augusti have said. I think the first half of the season was same old, same old. I think what was interesting to me is the way and the lengths in which especially McLaren improved the car in the second half of the season, to the point where at points you could say that Red Bull had the fourth best car on the grid in some races and in some instances. You saw the improvement in the Mercedes towards the end. The McLaren, the Ferrari was ever consistent throughout the season. I think they had a little dip, but then they with some bad upgrades. But you saw the teams that were competing with Red Bull try and catch up in ways that we haven't seen in previous seasons. And I think with the changes in regulation, with it being wind down to 2026, and the new rules in terms of money and in terms of tunnel time and stuff like that, I think the finishing lower benefited some teams in terms of what they were able to do, especially McLaren in improving the car, and the level and rate of they improved the car was something that we didn't expect to see. The second half of the season, where you had points where Mercedes were on top, points where McLaren on the top, points where even Ferrari had races where they were undoubtedly the quickest on the day, which we didn't see for a couple years. And it was the first time where you've had multiple different teams had different races where they felt like they were the best. I do believe that next season's going to be even greater, because I feel like there's going to be anywhere between 4 to 6 cars that can win races. It's going to be interesting to see what Mercedes do, because I think Mercedes would be disappointed considering they finished second last season to go down to fourth, and then McLaren to do the complete opposite from fourth to first. And then even with Red Bull towards the second half, their car turned into a junk bucket in certain races. And you saw it, especially with the likes of the inferior driver Perez in the car. You saw how bad it can be. So I think this season was a mixed bag. It kind of like it had everything and anything. And there were some great races, some crazy moments. And I think having Norris be there till at least the third last race is something that I did not expect. If anything, he was the least of the main contenders that I thought was going to be there. You were thinking maybe it would be a Mercedes driver or Ferrari driver competing with Max, but for it to be Norris, and then also this season shows that you need a good second driver, or a driver that is close to the level of your first in order to get the constructors, because that's what let Red Bull down in terms of the constructors towards the end. And I think next season's is going to be even more important, that these new drivers going into Mercedes and Red Bull and other teams, that they hit the ground running. They have no time to have a few wobbly performances just because of the level, and especially with the Red Bull situation, which we could talk about as well today or in future videos, because it's just it's a crazy one in my mind. But yeah, I've loved this season. I had some great moments. Ferrari 1-2s, multiple podiums, wins. As a Ferrari fan, this was one of the best seasons I've had in a long time. And seeing McLaren up there again, it felt like early 2000s Formula One, like when I was growing up. McLaren, Ferrari battling for wins and stuff like that. So it was good to see. It was good to see. But yeah, that's all I got to really say. Just a crazy season. I did not expect it. Halfway point, I thought it was just going to be Red Bull and Verstappen all over again. But I don't know what happened. What was the change? But the second half of the season is magical, and it's kind of like a glimpse of what next season can be.
I hear that, bro. I hear that definitely. In terms of how, like, as a whole this season, we've all been excited, like, in terms of every single race. There's always like a build up to it. There's always like a proper build up to it, because a lot of these races has something to play for. Everyone has something to play for. Unlike the last couple of years, I mean, there was really nothing much to play for, because Red Bull had already confirmed their championships by like a few races prior to the season being over. But now this was the year where this was finally there was actually competition towards the end of the race, towards the end of most races. Like, we had many different winners, we had many different different outcomes this year, and that's what I want to see. I want to see F1 being competitive like this. I don't want to see F1 be so one-sided. People be, oh, Verstappen's too dominant. I don't want it to be like that. If I'm being real, yeah, I want F1 to be competitive, and this was the year that I find F1 just so so competitive. And I hope next season for the same. Next season will be even better. Trust me. Right. We're gonna move on now. We're gonna move on to what should we start off with?
Do we want to talk about drivers of the year?
Let's actually talk about the off-season news before we get on to,
I like that.
obviously Red Bull and Checo Perez just, Checo Perez has already left Red Bull. Red Bull have parted ways with him. Right decision. I mean, personally for me, yeah, 100% right decision. I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't put it past Red Bull, cause I mean, I didn't put it past Red Bull, and it was the right move, to be honest. But to go to Liam Lawson now as Max Verstappen's, second driver is a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a gamble. Obviously, I hope he does well. I mean, he's a young kid. I mean, he's going to one of the biggest cars, going to a massive stage in F1 right away. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I hope he does well, but I don't. At this rate, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot for a young driver like him to take in. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. A lot of pressure for him to take up, and obviously, you've got Checo Perez leaving. King, I'll start with you first. Actually, Checo Perez's future. Obviously, you think he retires? You think he goes somewhere else? And do you think it was the right decision? Because I think it was from Red Bull standpoint. I think it was time to part ways with Checo Perez. But the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, definitely. I think Checo's time in Formula One is somewhat up. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to find a place in the future. I think especially with a lot of the younger drivers coming through, it's going to be very interesting to see what he does next. But he does have a lot of money behind him as well. So, you know what I could see if Fernando Alonso does ever go from Aston Martin, maybe that could be a team he joins. He could easily become a reserve driver for some of these teams, especially if they need a bit of extra money. But for me, it was the right decision just because towards the second half of the season, he was really poor in terms of his performances, in terms of qualifying. Like there was many times where he didn't even get past Q1, which is not really the level that you need to be, especially with that Red Bull car. Even though it wasn't the best on the grid, it wasn't Q1 not making it to Q1 bad. So it's the kind of thing where you look at him and you think, yeah, towards the second, he fired himself with the performances he had at the second half of the season. It looked like he lost his confidence. It looked like he lost his ability to drive that Red Bull. And it usually happens because the way the Red Bull is made is made to suit Max. And Max has a very aggressive style of driving. So the second driver needs to be just as aggressive as him, just as mad as him in terms of the way they drive. And I think Sergio just didn't do that the second half of the season. The only problem I have is that they chose the wrong driver. For me, if you look at the metrics, I think Yuki Tsunoda was the better driver than Liam Lawson towards the second half of the season. And I think it's very disrespectful on him not to give him the opportunity first as the second driver of the Red Bull, because he's been in the system longer. And I have no doubts in his ability to be fast and to be aggressive and to be played to suit that style of car, especially the way he drives in the sister team. I understand Liam Lawson is the young talent is a young talent as well, but I feel like you give Yuki half a season, see what he does in that Red Bull, and if he's not good enough, then you can do the swap. But to bypass him for Liam Lawson just means that if I'm Yuki, I'm looking at where I can go next, because there's no future for me in the sister team of Red Bull. When the seat of the bigger team comes up, I'm getting bypassed by guys that were in F2 a couple of seasons ago when I've been driving in Formula One for multiple seasons. doing my thing as well. So I think it was a bad choice. I still believe that they should have gone for Carlos Sainz as well, for a more experienced driver in terms of a guy that's shown this season that he can get podiums, that he can win races, and I think
Who was
Red
one of
Bull
the
are gonna-
drivers that was? Sorry to interrupt you. Here. Who was one of the drivers that was doing so well for Alpine in the second half of the season? Do you guys remember? Who was that driver that got second
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
Pierre
Brazil
Gasly.
Grand Prix? He could have been He could have been an option.
And he was there
Another-
already.
Another
Several
one. Another one that could have been an option. Like Red Bull really messed up on the second. I'm rooting for, like I said, I'm rooting for Liam Lawson, but I think it's a bit of a stretch now. It's way too early. He hasn't really proved himself much on the big stage. I hope he does well. I really do, but I'm just worried that the pressure might get to him at such an age. If he's ready to take the challenge on, then I wish him good luck because I hope he does well. But there were so many good options out there. Carlos Sainz could have gone back to Red Bull. You could have had Pierre Gasly. Alex Albon maybe back. Who knows? There's so many good options out there, like for you, like available. Alonso, you could have tried to lure Alonso away from Aston Martin because their car, I don't know how good they'll be next season, right? You could have tried to lure him away. You have the money to lure anyone to your team, but going for Liam Lawson now is a bit of a stretch. However, like I said, I'm not wishing anything. I'm not wishing him any bad luck. Of course, I want him to do well. It's just about if he's ready to take on the pressure, and if he is, go for it. I'm rooting for him. But yeah, King, sorry I interrupted you, man. I just wanted to get that point across.
No, it's all good. It's all good. In regards to Gasly, I don't think he'd go back to Red Bull just because of the remarks he made once he left them. Same with Albon. I think the way they treated them two drivers, when they were in their inferior Red Bull, I don't think they're going to go back to that team because I don't think they see themselves in their long term. But yeah, as I said, for me, I think Yuki should have been the one, or if you were going to go for an outside person, it would have been Carlos because that would have been a home run. He's driven alongside Verstappen before. He's an elite driver. He's shown he can hit podiums. He's shown he's been a great second driver with Ferrari and Charles, and even in previous seasons, even beaten Charles over a season. So he's shown that he can, do what he needs to do in order to win races and to get podiums. And I think they may rue that mistake in terms of not going for a more experienced driver. But I think Liam Lawson will have every chance to succeed. But Red Bull's a very cutthroat car in terms of. I used to say it's Max Verstappen and the second driver. I used to not even name the second driver when it comes to Red Bull. Like even Sergio Perez, for him to be there for that long, especially during the season where he was performing so badly, for him to stay the whole season is something that I've never seen from Red Bull. But they've had a lot of unrest. They've lost Adrian Newey. They've lost a lot of their staff. I think it's been a very turbulent time. Also, you had the news with Chris Horner and the alleged stuff that he had in the background as well. So I think Red Bull's been up and down in terms of the backroom, and I think there's been a lot of beef between him and the likes of Marco and the other like top heads of Red Bull in terms of their decision making, because there was a lot of discourse in regards to, like, some people wanted Yuki, some people wanted Liam. So Liam Lawson has to hit the ground running, has to be perfect next season in terms of wherever Max is doing, he needs to be within a half a second of him or close by him. Because if he isn't, I think his seat's going to be very, very, unsecure. I think that's one of the most unsecure spots in the whole of the racing grid. So good luck to him. But yeah, for me, wrong decision, but wrong decision for Liam Lawson, right decision to get rid of Perez because he stayed there too long, in my opinion.
Gusty, over to you, bro. I mean, obviously, you elaborated on Checo Perez as well earlier. We've mentioned many times that Checo Perez has not lived up to the standard of the season and this year as a whole. Maybe, and do you think it was a case of he was bored of Red Bull? Do you think he wanted to take on a new challenge? Do you think he was upset with the backroom, the people in the boardroom, the staff, the team behind? But first of all, give us your thoughts on Checo Perez. Do you think it was the right move by Red Bull? What do you think? What do you think actually happened? And Liam Lawson filling in, obviously. Give your thoughts on a whole, the whole scenario.
I'll give a metaphor analogy that Ekevin, I think you'll agree with. Red Bull replacing Checo Perez right now is the equivalent of United replacing Eric Ten Hag when they did. It had to happen, but it was a little bit too late. Sure, I mean, better late than never. I completely agree with you. But
maybe not too late because last year he was winning races like as a whole, but this year was the year that I don't think it was actually. Sorry to interrupt you, bro. I just wanted to get this point across here. I don't think it's too late. I think it's about the right time because last year he was still winning races. Last year he was still getting results. He was still podium, finishing in the podium. Like it's not. I wouldn't say, he had a bad year or it's a bit too late. I just think maybe they could have got someone in earlier. At the same time, this is the right time to replace him. It's not too late for me, but I think it's the right time. But sorry, go on, bro. Just wanted to say this.
I understand completely what you're saying, but if we're talking about Red Bull, this is exclusive to Red Bull, this trait, not any other of the teams on the grid. Red Bull historically have replaced drivers in the middle of the seasons. They've done it multiple times before. So if we're going based on that standard, and Red Bull's ruthlessness has clearly not changed. It has not. If they were wanting to win the Constructors' Championship, they had to remove Checo Perez. His seat was untenable for a while. And again, you mentioned last season, Ekevin. What I would say to that is, sure, I agree. But that RB19, the gap between first and second was perhaps bigger than any other car, maybe the Mercedes in 2020 in F1 history. So, of course, Checo Perez was going to win a couple races. He had to. And he was the king of the street circuits, as we know. However, coming into this season, he didn't do it in streets. He didn't do it again in dry. He didn't do it in the wet. He didn't do it in any circuit. He didn't win a single race this season. That is astonishing. He was the only driver among the top 4 teams not to win a race. And all 7 of the other drivers won at least 2 races this season. So that was reprehensible. Red Bull could have, again, in any sport, whether it's football or F1, the currency of the sport is not, again, loyalty, it's success. Loyalty is integral. I absolutely agree with you. However, Checo Perez, throughout the last 3 seasons when he's been at Red Bull, with the exception of the season when he helped Max win in 2021 against Lewis, very controversially, as King said, he's basically he's Max Verstappen's stooge. That's what he is. He is Max Verstappen's stooge. All he's there to do is basically be Max Verstappen's number 2. But Red Bull as a team, you have to win the Constructors' Championship. You did win the title last season, and there's no reason why you shouldn't defend it this season when for the first 10 races you had the fastest car. So going back to my point about Red Bull being ruthlessness, what I would say here is if Red Bull replaced Danny Rick, I don't know why you didn't replace Checo Perez. If Danny Rick is in the sister team and you could replace Danny Rick and the motives and incentives, and there's not a lot of money at stake there versus at the top, why didn't you replace Checo Perez? A. B, the other point here is, again, when it comes to Checo Perez, replacing him with Liam Lawson, I get it. Look, pre-Formula One, Liam Lawson has had success. He's had success across Europe. He's won a couple championships as well in the respective competitions he has competed in. However, I completely agree with everything you said about Yuki Tsunoda being better, just head-to-head as well. I don't need to delve into that. He was a better qualifier, a better racer. So 100%. But just fundamentally and logically speaking here, what's the point in Red Bull having AlphaTauri, Visa, Cash App, credit card, MasterCard, whatever you want to call that team? What's the point in having that team be your sister team if you're not going to sign the drivers who are the best at that team? What's the point? What is the point? Because the whole point, I thought, of Yuki Tsunoda being the number 1 guy at Visa Cash App was because the next step for him would be Red Bull. But you didn't do that. You didn't do that. You didn't sign him. You picked Liam Lawson, who's been a reserve driver, who's not even raced a full season in Formula One. So to me, it's bizarre. What's the point in Visa Cash App then? It just logically, it makes no sense to me. And secondly, as well, not just from a results standpoint, is Yuki Tsunoda unequivocally and unanimously better than Liam Lawson. It's also the fact that Yuki, I think his personality has also evolved and blossomed as the seasons have gone by. A lot of people don't talk about this in mainstream, but Yuki has matured. Initially, if you remember, he was very petulant, and he still is petulant. But in a way, he has found the right balance of petulance, but also composure, because he has been the leader of that team. And he has outperformed that car, perhaps better than almost any driver has across the entire grid this season. You can even make a case because Yuki Tsunoda has had some very good finishes. So, again, all I would say here is, Checo Perez had to go. It was untenable. And based on Red Bull's history of replacing drivers, they had to replace them earlier, because if they did, they could have easily salvaged the constructors. B, what's the point in having a sister team in Visa, Cash App, MasterCard? Because if you're not going to hire the best driver there, the driver you've been training for the role at Red Bull, you might as well not have a sister team. And C, yeah, I agree. One, you were very slow. You were passive, not proactive. I completely agree with you, Ekevin. Red Bull should have gone for Carlos Sainz. Right after Australia, when he came back after appendix, when he was still available, go. These are once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. Go. You should have pursued him and acquired him, but you didn't. And that's a big blow. And then you still had the opportunity to sign Yuki Tsunoda, who's a fantastic driver. And I think, just adding on to what King said, King made the point that, the number 2 is basically Max Verstappen's number 2, not Red Bull's number 2. I think Yuki would have actually been, from an entertainment standpoint, for us, would have been great, because I don't think he would have 100% been submissive to Max Verstappen. I think there have been a couple qualifyings or races where Yuki would have, if he had the pace and he was comfortable with the car, he would have perhaps pushed and annoyed Max. So, look, I don't know. I think it's a bizarre decision from Red Bull. It doesn't make sense financially because, again, I think Yuki Tsunoda, even just as a driver, he generates more revenue from a commercial standpoint. The Japanese market is massive. The Asian market is massive. So I don't really know what the decision was to get Liam Lawson. As you said, Ekevin, take nothing away. Liam Lawson, we hope he does well, because eventually at the end of the day, we're all people and we all want to see us succeed and feed our families. But it makes no sense economically, competitively, and commercially.
Look, I mean, they could have done that, but at the same time, it'd be a bit unfair. As I think Max and Checo do have a good relationship. As in, they're good teammates. They have a good they have trust. That's the thing. When you're a teammate with somebody that you've been with for a while, you need to have trust. And him and Checo Perez have had 2 really good seasons together. Do I think Perez his time was up? Surely it was. But usually nowadays, people don't really, cut losses mid-season. They do it they do it at the end of the season. To be fair with you, there was no one really available to go and replace Checo Perez at the time. Personally, so I don't know who could have joined. I mean, Mick Schumacher. I mean, where he's not available. He's not back. I mean, I don't know what's happened to him. Wishing the best to him if he's wishing the best to him anyways. Don't know. I don't know what else. I don't know what's going on. But really and truly, there was no one really there to replace Checo Perez. Actually, if you ask me the question, but I mean, yeah, I still hear your point though. Regardless, moving on though, is there any more interesting news you guys have about the off season? Is there anything that I missed out on? Because as of now, I've only got the Checo Perez news. I can't remember anything else. There was more. I'm sure there's more news, but yeah. And people. Sorry, I interrupted you. The Ferrari release date for the cars is on February 12th. So please make sure that put this in mind. That if any Ferrari fans are watching the stream, the car release of 2025 is on February 12th. So make sure you're there. Make sure you put it in your calendars. Yeah, sorry, Gus. Yeah, go on, bro. Just you guys.
No, I think King, you can probably correct or expand on to what I'm about to say. But Ekevin, it's a great segue because you mentioned Ferrari. If I'm not mistaken, I think there are a lot of reports suggesting that Ferrari are going to completely build a new car. I think that's, to me, probably the biggest revelation out of this offseason, because to all of us, I don't know about you guys, but I've been saying this a lot throughout the recent shows. If we're looking at the trends since the summer break, Ferrari, to me, have been the most positive team. They have been trending upwards. Their car, in all circumstances, all conditions, and overall, just as a package, and their power unit, and their sister teams, have been performing and producing the best results. And now on top of that, to consolidate that, they have experience and they have the best driver in F1 history when it comes to winning, and Charles Leclerc, who's ready to lead. So to basically take a very positive trajectory and say, hang on a minute, sure, it may be good, but we're going to completely change the car. It'll be interesting. We'll see. I don't know if it's the right decision. Could be very reckless, could be premature and not precise, but I don't know. King, what do you make? Have you heard of those reports? If so, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I actually haven't heard of the report, so I'm looking at it now. But for me, with next season, the interesting thing is, I think next season's probably the best season to experiment if you're Ferrari, because the season after is going to be a completely different change in terms of regulations. So, and also you're going to have another team join the grid in 2026, different regulations. There's going to be a lot happening. So if you're going to have a season where you want to experiment or try different things, have with the likes of Carlos, or no, with the likes of Charles, and especially with Sir Lewis, it Sir Lewis Hamilton is probably the best driver to experiment with, because you saw what he did for the Mercedes when they gave him the kind of experimental car where he was just trying different things. And I think he's one of the greatest minds in this sport as a driver to improve the car. So you kind of take that risk because of the level of driver that you're acquiring. So I think it will be interesting to see how it performs, but I have no doubt that Ferrari have the best of the best in terms of engineers and stuff like that in order for it to happen. The only thing was, I was sad that they didn't go for Adrian Newey. I think that would have been a match made in heaven. I think he even said himself that he wanted to work with Lewis. That would have been something completely different for Ferrari. I would have loved to see that. But in terms of this, yeah, no, it makes sense to me. It's like the last season of a regulation, so it's kind of like a, go big or go home kind of thing for Ferrari. I think, because I think the way they currently built their car, it was very inconsistent. There was times where Ferrari was the quickest car, times where Ferrari was the slowest. So maybe going a different direction is what's needed in order to beat McLaren and beat Red Bull and the other teams. And sometimes you gotta take a risk for the reward. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward in this sport. But I also think that I don't think they take next season too seriously, because I think the reason why they brought in Lewis and done all these changes is because they're hoping to be the team in 2026, to be the leader. Because when a new regulation comes, that can lead to another team dominating, and I think that's what Ferrari want to be, because they haven't dominated this sport since Schumacher. And with Hamilton and Charles, you can dominate the sport if you give them the right car. So it'll be interesting. Next season's gonna be a lot of what if questions, especially when it comes to the cars, when it comes to the drivers, all the new young talent coming through as well. So yeah, I'm excited. Man. I just want to see what they do with it. It'll be interesting though if they're gonna rebuild the car. It could go either way. We could become one of the worst teams or the best team. So who knows?
My only hope with Ferrari now is, can the team around them needs to be competent enough to utilize the car, to build the car to its ability. That's not its ability. Sorry. To build the car to an ability where drivers can take on the steering wheel, actually make good decisions next season, because Ferrari have made poor decisions in the past. I have been saying it and I will say it again. The team are just not competent. They have not been competent. Ferrari needs a whole new refresh. They need a whole new restart, refresh. Because I've just been seeing, same old every year. There are times where, Ferrari gets pole and they just don't make the right decisions, and then it ends up costing them the races, sorry. I remember in 2022, I'll never forget Charles Leclerc having arguably the best car in the grid, and the team just behind him is not competent enough. So this is what I'm trying to say. I need Ferrari to actually build a competent team around the two drivers that are coming in next season. or at least the driver that's coming in next season, because I'm not gonna sit. I don't want to keep sitting here and keep on complaining about the team making poor decisions, making constant errors week in week out. King, you've been through this as well. We as Ferrari fans, we've been through this. We've been through a lot of this, right? We've been through a lot of this, like, you know, a lot in the past few years as a Ferrari fan. Like it's been going on since Sebastian Vettel, really. It's really been going on since Sebastian Vettel, if you deep it, because Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc were the duo to take Ferrari to the next level. I think it would have been. I think they were. But the team around Ferrari is just not competent enough. Like I've been saying it, the team around the two drivers are just not competent. Binotto was a fraud. That guy was a fraud. Like in 2022, trust me, like the amount of times I had to complain about him, like, bro, it was peak years.
Tell me about it. My phone was clogged of messages because you were on a rant after rant every single day about Binotto and.
Bro, because Ferrari could have easily won so many races that year. We could have easily won more than 6-7 races that year.
You had the fastest car at the beginning.
We did. That's what I'm saying. Like I said, the team around the two drivers are not competent, and I'm hoping that Ferrari can, you know, refresh things next season. Bring in people that have worked with Lewis Hamilton. Bring in people that have previously worked with Charles Leclerc, or something of the sort. Just combine it. I want two drivers competing at the very, very top. Both my drivers competing. I don't care who races for Ferrari. I just want Ferrari to be at the very, very top. Really and truly. I support Ferrari. I don't support individual drivers unless you're Michael Schumacher and you've come back from retirement. If there was ever a world one day where Michael Schumacher was racing again, I'd probably go support Michael Schumacher. But because he raced with Ferrari and because his great years were at Ferrari, Ferrari is my team. And I only want the best for Ferrari going forward, really and truly. So yeah, but yeah, we're gonna move on now. Any final thoughts on the news or anything? Any other news that you guys had to bring up or anything? Nothing really. Nothing. All right. Best race of the year. We'll start off with that. Just go brief on this one, so we don't have to go too long on this one. Go brief on it. Best race of the year.
Kevin, do you want to start us?
Ooh. Do you want me to give you a biased one, or do you want me to give you like an unbiased?
You can do biased. Maybe favorite race of the year.
All right, favorite race of the year. The Ferrari 1 and 2. The Ferrari 1 and 2. In, what was it, USA?
Austin,
Texas. That was the one. That's it. That was the one where Ferrari got 1 and 2. That's it. I woke up late to the race, but guess what? I watched the ending, and that was all that. That's all that mattered. So my favorite race of the year by a long distance. Ferrari getting 1 and 2. And yeah, and the following week they also got 1. I think they got 1 and 3. So you know what? That makes it even better. Back-to-back podiums. You know, back-to-back. You know, points on the board and stuff like that. But yeah, King. Give us your favorite race of the year.
I'm trying to figure out what race it was.
Which one are you talking about?
It's the one where the Alpines finished second and third.
Brazil.
What race was that?
Brazil.
Sao Paulo.
Yeah, that was my favorite race of the year because I like the races where the unexpected happens, where it's rain, you don't really know, and it's just the driver. It's the driver that has to not make mistakes, and the amount of mistakes these drivers were making, the amount of times these cars were crashing, and it was one of the best races for me because it kind of defined Max's win for the season. I think that's the race where he won the championship. That's the race where
that was it.
He showed his prowess, and to have 2 Alpines up there as well was great. But yeah, so I think that race, just because it's just different. I like when a race is different. I don't really like a race where I go into it thinking if there's no incidents, I know what's gonna happen. It's kind of like you can predict it before it happens. Where that race was just all over the place. Even the qualifying was crazy. That was all over the place. So it was just I like rain races because it just shows that it's sometimes it's not the car, it's the driver.
Yeah, it just brings the best out of certain drivers, doesn't it? Yeah. Gustia, favorite race of the year?
Yeah, I like both of your shouts. I think Austin was great. If we're talking about Ferrari, I think the two races for me that stand out would be Monza and Monaco for obvious reasons. Charles Leclerc fulfilling his childhood dream to win in Monaco.
Oh yeah, that one was one of my.
Although the race, I would argue, was perhaps in terms of quality and entertainment the worst in the entire season, but that all gets overshadowed by that one moment where Leclerc fulfilled his dream. So I agree. And then also Monza was great. Charles Leclerc, strategy prowess. But for me personally, I would say my favorite race, my two favorite races this year were Silverstone and Spa. Not because Lewis Hamilton won. Well, Silverstone, yes, because 3 years in the making. It's been some of the toughest, some of the worst trials and tribulations, not just on track, but off the track for Hamilton. And for him to win out of nowhere, win at home against all the odds with the pressure, some of the maneuvers he made managing his tires in that final stint, and then overtaking George Russell from behind and Lando Norris. Epic, extraordinary, vintage, hammer time Lewis Hamilton performance. But also Spa. I think Spa is an underrated race on my birthday as well. Let me just add.
Yeah.
That race, the top 8 were all competing for the win, if you guys remember. It was a pretty entertaining and epic race. Obviously, it ended up with George, Lewis, and Oscar on the podium until Russell was DNF'd. But the race was very entertaining. It went right down to the wire. That was the epitome of Formula One without changing conditions, because that was strategy on display, that was quality on display, and that was mental fortitude on display. So I think that was great because all the 4 constructors were in it to win it. And throughout the race, we didn't know which way it would swing. Eventually, it went to Lewis Hamilton, which is poetic because greatest driver ever, winning one of the greatest races this season. So yeah, bottom line, Silverstone and Spa were my 2 favorite races.
Can I add one real quick as well? I want to add Mexico when Carlos won his, because I think the emotion behind it, him getting that final win for Ferrari, obviously all the great years he had in that car, and it's always nice to see him and Lando 1 and 2, Carl Lando, baby. So yeah, I always like seeing that. That's always great to see. So I'm gonna add that to the list as well for me personally.
Best race of the year as a neutral. I'll go first. I'm struggling to pick out one because I did not watch the Italian Grand Prix. Unfortunately, I missed that Charles Leclerc win in Monza. I missed it. And
can I interrupt you 1 second? Do you remember why you missed it?
Yeah, I was at the pub, getting ready for that Liverpool humiliation.
Yeah. I think I did the right thing by watching Monza and missing the beginning of the horror show at Old Trafford.
When you arrived, you made it, but it's all right. We all saw
I didn't see the first few goals.
You did, but it's all right. We'll move on. Favorite race of the year. Sorry, not favorite race of the year. Sorry, best race of the year. Excuse me. Oh, tough one. I can't lie. It has to be. Oh man, I actually can't say. I really can't say. Can you guys enlighten me? Can you guys bring up something? Auguste, I'll go to you first. You go.
I think for me, the contenders would be, as we discussed, it would be Brazil, because it was rainy, conditions were chaotic.
I didn't watch Brazil.
Oh, it was unbelievable drama from minute 1 to the end.
I watched
Brazil.
Didn't watch the race.
Fair. So it would be Interlagos for me, Silverstone. But I would add one more. I think, to least King, you would probably add, because I'm forgetting a lot. It's been a while. I would say Miami. Just because are we forgetting Lando Norris won his first race this season, and the way he did it in Miami, going wheel to wheel with Max several times in that race, and having the robust mental fortitude to consolidate the victory. I think Miami is up there as well. Also with the conditions, who was in the garage, and how it happened. That was really interesting as well. So I think Lando Norris in Miami for sure in the States.
No, I hear that. I hear that. Lando Norris in the States. That was the best race of the year for you, yeah.
No, I think that's the other race we've forgotten. Apart from that, I would say the best races are what we mentioned: Silverstone, Spa, Sao Paulo, and Miami.
Nah, not your
think-
favorite, but just in general. What was the
Yeah, yeah,
race? What was the most?
those
Was probably the best. Was the most dramatic? Was probably how it ended, how it started, the drama in between. Like, what was the best race of the year for you? Like, if you had to pick one, you had to pick one. Brazil, was it Brazil for you?
gun to the head among those four, which I would say were the best, would be Brazil. Yes.
King.
For me, British. I would go with the British.
The Silverstone, yeah.
Yeah, Silverstone. Yeah.
Tough one. Best race of the year. It was one where Max Verstappen and Lando Norris were going wheel to wheel, just one defending the other, one holding off each other. You know what I'm trying to say? I can't remember.
Was this
what it was.
Austria when they crashed into each other?
Austria?
And George, in Austria when they going wheel to wheel, they crashed into each other, and then George won the race.
No, it was not that one. It was where they both got a penalty, and it was probably was probably Austin again, wasn't it? It was Austin again, wasn't it?
I think you're referring to Mexico, as King mentioned, Carlos Sainz's last win.
No, yeah, but Austin was where they both, collided, and then they sort of, missed. They both missed the podium places, and it was just the Ferraris, and I think it was George Russell that got it or something like that.
Austria, yeah.
It was Austria, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess maybe Austria. I guess personally for me,
Good shout.
I guess Austria. Why not? As a Ferrari fan, I had to say best race of the year. Austria, I guess. As a neutral, you probably say Brazil, because Brazil had the Alpines getting the podiums, which was really unexpected. You could maybe even argue the last race of the year was as fun as it was, because if you look at it from a standpoint, Ferrari, like Charles Leclerc came from 19th to finish third in the whole race. The way he was swifting through cars, the way he was, breezing through. The start of the race had the drama where, Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri had the collision where it almost costed Oscar Piastri a top 10 finish. Man, Ferrari nearly had it in the bag, but McLaren were too good at the end. Yeah, you could maybe say the last race of the year was also good. I'd probably lean towards Brazil because I didn't really watch it. I watched the highlights back. Yeah, Alpine's getting second and third. It was unexpected, really. So I'm gonna go with Brazil. Best driver of the year. Who was your standout? We could say Max Verstappen, but I know he won the championship. But who was your standout driver? Who was the driver that really, really impressed you the most this year?
I'll just say quickly, I agree with you, of course. The best driver would be Max Verstappen. I've said this a lot throughout the season. When Max didn't have the fastest car, he minimized the damage. And when he had the fastest car, he maximized it. So for the one final time this season, I've said that statement out the window. It's gone. But I would say Nico Hülkenberg. Just because, yes, he actually didn't finish best among the rest outside the top 4 teams. But if you look at it throughout the season, he had over, I think it was 13 Q3 finishes. That's insane. In a Haas car, to be in the top 10 and qualifying 13 times across the season, that's remarkable. And then to consolidate that on a Sunday as well, consistently. If you actually look at it on the balance of play in terms of across the season, I would say Hülkenberg was better than Gasly, just because Gasly really benefited from that fortuitous. Certainly, he had to do his work defending his position in second, but it was very fortuitous based on conditions in Sao Paulo. But if you remove Sao Paulo across the season, Hulkenberg was the best among the rest, and I think he was very impressive.
Didn't you say Magnussen?
No, I said Nico Hulkenberg. So
remember early in the year in one of the preview shows you said Magnussen about something, but
no, it was Hulkenberg because
Hulkenberg. All right.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't talk about Magnussen much this season, unfortunately, but it's a shame to see him going away from the sport.
Sorry, continue what you were saying, bro.
No, it's okay. It's good to question. I think, yeah, so obviously, as you said, Akavin, Max, outstanding standout. I think this season he really debunked a lot of the claims because he wasn't as petulant or overly aggressive as he usually is, and he picked his battles. He focused on what he had to do, win the championship, like at Las Vegas, for example. And he was really a leader. He carried that team through the mid-season slump single-handedly, extracted every ounce of potential possible from a waning and weakening car. So Max Verstappen, to me, definitely his best season in Formula One so far because he was a leader, he was a legend, and he did it in the wet, he did it in the dry, and he really, no matter what the conditions were, no matter what the state of the car was, he maximized its output. So kudos to Verstappen. And then I would say, again, my second to Verstappen would be Nico Hulkenberg. So
King?
In terms of outside of the big four, for me, it would be Yuki Tsunoda as the one that I would say had the best season. Just because the fact that they put in Danny Rick in his car and for you to go up against someone that once was viewed as a guy that could win a world championship, that has won races before, that is an elite driver, and beat him to the point where they removed him from the car when a lot of people were talking that Yuki only got the seat because of Honda, but he proved that he was the better driver. He proved that he was also better than Liam Lawson, and he matured a lot over the course of the season, and you've seen it in terms of the way he drove, in the way he kind of, as Augustia said, became a leader over the course of the season. So for me, what he did was very impressive to me because it takes a really great driver to be better than Daniel Rick, in my opinion, especially with the big talks coming in that Danny Rick was going to go on to, even get the Red Bull seat and things of that nature. So for him to kind of beat him in that essence, then I would say that. And then the in terms of the big four teams, I'm going to go with Carlos Sainz. The reason why I say him is because once the big news that he was going to be out of Ferrari, that Lewis Hamilton was going to take his place, and it was I think it was either before the season or during the season, the amount of shockwaves that kind of storyline has on a driver that that your seat is gone. A lot of drivers would just, rein it in, not try as much, not go to that level. But the fact that he won races, the fact that he was just as good as Charles in terms of qualifying, in terms of race pace, and in some instances even better than him, and even towards the second half of the season, he still was right there, getting podiums, doing what he needed to do. And I think he proved that he is a great driver and that, he could have done a lot more. But for me, Carlos is someone that it's unfortunate we're not going to see him in a big team for the foreseeable future. Hopefully he gets a good couple of years with Williams.
He'll definitely be back. He'll be back in a big team.
But yeah, no, he was elite this season, in my opinion.
My standout driver, for me, the best driver this year, tough. The best driver this year is I don't know if this answer is lazy. I don't know if it's like, lazy to say this answer.
I mean, we all said it, Ekevin. We all said Max, so you can't get any lazier than that.
No, I'm not gonna say Max Verstappen because you can't go a few months without winning a race. I'm sorry. If you're You can't go a few months without winning a race. I understand he won the championship, but it's by points, not by winning races, not just by winning a lot of races. He won it on points.
I mean, he did win the most races. He won 4 times as many as anybody else.
That's true, but you can't go a few months blank without winning races, bro. You can't go months without blanking in races. You finished outside the podium many times. I'm gonna say Lando Norris. And people are gonna be like, it's lazy. But Lando Norris had his breakthrough year this year. This is for me. This is where I think he had his breakthrough year. People could be like, maybe he did it 2 years ago when Lewis and Max were competing for that championship. I disagree. I think this was the year. I think this was the year Lando Norris won his first race. Right? He won his first race. He's then been in conversations ever since. I think he's had the best year of his life. I mean, it's only going to get better from here. I think this is his best year. This is his breakout year. Most standout driver in a lot of races. He's gone up against Max, the champion of the year, and he's absolutely blitzed him. Bro, he won by 20 plus seconds against Max Verstappen at one point this year. After not even winning, was that his first race that he's ever won? He won by like 20 plus points or something. I can't remember. Sorry, 20 plus seconds. Not 20 plus points. Was that his first race win? Because if that was his first race win, that's impressive. This is his breakthrough year, and I think he's gonna have a great year next year. So for me, Lando Norris. Driver for my personal driver of the year, Charles Leclerc. Because this is where I thought he really showed his true personality, his true competitive mindset, competitive ability. Because there were times this year where he was arguing against his team, arguing against Carlos Sainz. Why did they choose Carlos Sainz? This and that. He wants to win. He has the body language of a winning driver. This is where I felt that that he deserved his flowers. And Charles Leclerc next year, we go again next year. Come on, Charles.
Can I just add something to what you said, Akvin?
Go on.
Can I piggyback really quickly? I like the shouts. I think Lando and Leclerc are great shouts. I don't know about Lando though. For those watching, I don't know if you followed the streams, and some of my friends like Liam and Neil, I know you guys are watching, so big up to both of you. You guys have known I've been quite fond of Lando for a long time. Even in 2020 when he got podium in the first race of the season in Austria. And then in 2021, as you mentioned, Nekavin, many podiums, outperforming the car ridiculously well, getting on the podium. That heartbreaking race at Sochi where he should have won, where it was a masterstroke on quali as he was doing in the wets throughout the season, like in Spa and Sochi in 2021. So I think Lando has had breakout seasons before. But I don't know, man. As I've said on the show, I think heading into the season, if you would have told Lando Norris, hey, mate, Lando and all the Papaya fans, you're going to win the Constructors' Championship and you're going to win, 3-4 races this season? They'd bite your hand off for it. It would almost be a fever dream. But looking at how the season evolved and the drop of Red Bull and Ferraris weren't really able to compete with McLaren in time, I really feel like there were so many situations this season where Lando Norris and McLaren, not just individually but collectively, didn't maximize the output of the team. So I get the Lando shout, but again, I don't know, because every time he seemed to get pole, he seemed to lose places on the first lap. And I would say to you, Ekavin, is I think what really upholds your claim here is Abu Dhabi. Because I think that Abu Dhabi race perhaps might be the second most important race in Lando's career, alongside Miami, where he landed for the first time in Formula One in the record books. Because that Abu Dhabi race was the first time he actually won under proper pressure. Because the Constructors' Championship, with all that billion dollars of money on his back, on McLaren's back, invested by the Middle Eastern wealth, was on him. It was a 1v2, McLaren versus Ferrari. He had to hold serve. And many players, like if we were talking about holding serve, many of the youngsters in tennis, apart from Sinner and Alcaraz, haven't been able to hold serve, push come to shove. So Lando Norris was like an Alcaraz and a Sinner. Finally delivered when it matters most, delivered a trophy. So I think you mentioned Lando Norris, Ekavin, I agree with you. Because of that Abu Dhabi performance, performing under the highest of pressures possible, he He's had a very, very good season, and that will be big going into next season. So I agree, but I don't think across the season he was the best driver.
Yeah. No, it's all right, man. I mean, you can obviously have your say. Let's quickly wrap it up with one final award. Obviously, car of the year has to go to McLaren. I'm not going to give that. I'm not going to ask you for the car of the year. Most improved driver of the year. It's got to be Lando Norris, hasn't it? Most improved. If we're talking about improvement, not best, it has to be Lando Norris. He's improved because he's won his first races and he's been in conversations this year. Like I mentioned in best driver. But let's just give a quick analysis on just spend at least
I'm gonna say something so random you guys are gonna think I need to be admitted into the hospital for this. I think the most improved driver this year, Max Verstappen. Hold up. I know. Wait. It sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, right? 4-time champion.
No. Go on.
I really think the improvement we've seen from him, from a maturity level, like, dude, I mentioned Las Vegas when he secured the championship. I guarantee you, Max before this season, before he was a father, before he was more composed and mature, would have easily fought the Mercedes and the Ferraris, and he would have probably crashed out. Knowing how aggressive he was, he would have made the mistake he made in Abu Dhabi against Piastri, but he didn't, and he held serve every single time, and he minimized it every single time, the damage, and maximized himself. So I would actually say Max Verstappen was for sure the most improved driver for me this season, and King, I'm gonna take credit for you from you here. This is because of you, Max and Yuki. You made the Yuki point here. I think Max and Yuki, those two have improved the most. So Red Bull, you should have hired them as your driver pairing. That's what you should have done. King, on to you.
Go on, King. Let's wrap it up.
I do agree with the Yuki shot. I would say he's one of the names that I thought of in terms of most improved. But for me, the one that I think is the real most improved driver is Oscar Piastri. Considering last season, he was 9th. This season, he's 4th. He's won races this season. When McLaren has needed him, he's shown up. The last race wasn't really his fault. It was Max going crazy. But in terms of his consistency throughout the season, he's been very consistent. And for such a young driver to have that consistency and to keep up with Lando as well, in order for McLaren to win the championship, it shows how great of a drive he had. And he even had more points than Sainz this season. And yeah, so for me, I think Oscar is the one that I've seen grow leaps and bounds in terms of from the start of the season, he used to have a problem with when it came to making sure his tires kind of, in terms of degradation with his tires, he was very aggressive on his tires. And towards the end of the season, you could even see an improvement in that, in how he was able to keep tires for longer periods of time, leading to wins, leading to better points positions and stuff like that. So you can even see the visible improvement throughout the season as him as a driver and him understanding the car and Formula One in that ilk. So for me, Oscar and Yuki are the two most improved.
I hear that, man. You guys have some really good shouts. Next season we'll be back here talking about this again and be like, we'll probably give more and more, inside, obviously, and inside depth, or more in depth on the drivers and how this pans out. We're gonna do this in the year. We're gonna do this next year again, people. So make sure you guys go ahead and like and subscribe. Big up for 105 subs. Big up to my pal Liam who subbed 105th sub. Big up to you. Big up, bro. Big up everyone who's supported me throughout the year. F1 will be back next year in March. We'll be previewing the season. We'll be previewing the season opener We'll be talking about every single race as a week on a weekly basis. I promise next year I'll try and improve my thumbnails, people. I'm just a beginner. I'm just an amateur. We'll see. We'll see how we do next year. People, we're gonna wrap it up here. There's 18 of you watching. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe. I've sent the link on the Twitter quote, so make sure you guys click that link and subscribe. Lads, thank you guys for coming on 2024. 2025 will be a much better year.
Wait. Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Go on,
Quickly,
go on.
we can clip this. Early predictions. Gun to the head. Who you guys picking to win the constructors and drivers? Really quickly.
We'll give that next year. We'll give that next year. We'll do the full predictions next year. I don't want to give it now because there's more news coming, so we'll have to,
Okay. Fair.
But yeah, appreciate you guys for supporting the channel this year. Like, subscribe. Have a great new year. I'll be back for NBA and football talk next on Monday. So guys, make sure you tune in. Premier League preview. I'll be back in an hour or so just to preview the Premier League that's coming up tonight. So you guys tune in, and yeah, all the good stuff. Thank you guys for coming on. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, King. As always, good to see you guys this year. King, I've left your link in the title. Please make sure you guys go subscribe to King. More content 2025 will be there. So yeah, I'll see you guys on Monday for the NBA show. Yep. People, that's been us today. Have a good one. Forza Ferrari. Take care.